You're watching The Legal Breakdown. Glenn, we have some major news coming down from the Supreme Court where they've announced that the Trump administration can move forward with plans to slash the federal workforce and dismantle entire agencies. So I want to ask first and foremost about the details of what the Supreme Court has done, but then also ask as a follow-up to that this decision was 8-1, meaning we had some justices on the liberal bloc of the court. And so is this decision as bad as it might seem on its face?
No. I mean, it seems terrible on its face, particularly when you read some of the reporting like by the New York Times saying, oh my goodness, the Trump administration was just given free rein to slash and burn and fire and shut down agencies that have been funded by Congress. But that's not exactly what happened. What happened was the Trump administration is signaling, yes, we want to do all this horrific stuff. Much of it sounds like it might be unlawfully shutting down agencies that were opened by, approved by, and funded by Congress, which the Trump administration can't lawfully do. But the Trump administration gave a directive to OMB, the Office of Management and Budget, and OPM, the Office of Personnel Management, saying, all right, give me plans to do all this horrible stuff, but make sure it's done in accordance with applicable law. Well, a trial court judge swooped in and said, look, the Trump administration can't do all this horrible stuff. And the judge put an injunction in place, putting a stop to it. And so the Supreme Court got a hold of it. And they basically said, listen, this is all still at a preliminary stage because nothing has been done, but there has been a request by the White House basically saying, we want to do all this stuff, so give us a plan to do it. So they said, listen, we're going to stop, we're going to pause what the trial court did issuing this injunction, and we're going to let this play out in the trial court because they still need to see precisely what the plans are going to be that the Trump administration tries to implement, whether they're lawful, whether they're unlawful, but all of this has to be litigated in the trial court. Now, they said, in the meantime, yeah, the Trump administration can keep putting these plans in place, and there's a suggestion that maybe they can begin implementing them. But the theory is only if they are in accordance with applicable law. But here is the tell, Brian. As you mentioned, this is an 8-1 decision. What does that mean? It means 8 justices, the radical right-wing bloc, the 6 justices who are basically willing to let Donald Trump do whatever he wants to do. But it also includes Justice Sotomayor, the voice of reason on the court, and Justice Kagan, another voice of reason and lawfulness and constitutionality on the court. And the only dissent is Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who makes her arguments as to, why she thinks this should be stopped dead in its tracks. But if I can, for our viewers, because I think this is what's most telling, is read the very short paragraph from Justice Sotomayor, who joined the 6-justice majority. Here's what she said. She said, I agree with Justice Jackson that the president cannot restructure federal agencies in a manner inconsistent with congressional mandates. Here, however, the relevant executive order directs agencies to plan reorganizations and reductions in force consistent with applicable law. And the resulting joint memorandum from the Office of Management and Budget and the Office of Personnel Management reiterates as much, in other words, in accordance with applicable law. The plans themselves are not before this court at this stage, and we thus have no occasion to consider whether they can and will be carried out consistent with the constraints of law. I join the court's stay because it leaves the district court, the lower trial court, free to consider those questions in the first instance. So this is a preliminary procedural ruling that does not really give the Trump administration the green light to begin to unlawfully terminate federal government employees or unlawfully shuttered government agencies that are being funded by Congress. So I'm not going to say this is much ado about nothing. It's an ominous sign, but there is still a lot to be litigated, and we don't yet know what the Trump administration will try to do that might violate the law. But if they do, then the trial court is fully prepared to dig into that litigation and rule accordingly.
So is this the kind of thing where for litigation to actually move forward, there has to be some actual harm? It's like saying, today I'm going to run a red light, and you're not going to get punished for that. But when you actually run the red light is when they can start litigating the actual issue at hand. Is that correct?
Exactly. Okay. This is lawlessness minus one. It's the Trump administration putting plans together, signaling that we're getting ready to do some lawless shit, but they haven't done it yet. And the trial court will take it up when and if they do.
Okay, so the fact that the Supreme Court has allowed this to move forward does not at all offer any insight into how they would rule if and when this thing actually gets in front of the Supreme Court on the merits. This just basically says this case just isn't ripe for litigation yet. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And anytime Justice Sotomayor and Justice Kagan say, you know what, procedurally speaking, this is the right decision and we join it, I have to tell you, that gives me great comfort that this is the right decision.
Okay. So with that said, is there any indication as to how the Supreme Court might rule on the actual merits of this case if and when the Trump administration does move forward with this stuff? Are there any analogous cases that we can look toward? Are there any analogous Supreme Court rulings that were handed down by this court that might give us some insight into what we could expect?
You know, it's hard to predict where this Supreme Court might go because there are two competing interests. On the one hand, we have the law and the Constitution. On the other side, we've got 6 Supreme Court justices who don't really seem to be bound by the law and the Constitution.
Yeah.
So it's anybody's guess. It's kind of a push. But here's the thing. There have been some Supreme Court cases, even recently, which at least have paid lip service to the fact that the Trump administration, the executive branch of our government, can't just shut down agencies that were created by Congress, are funded by Congress, and Congress sets certain minimum requirements for what those agencies must do in accordance with that funding. So there are some cases out there that would serve as precedent in the event the Trump administration tried to unlawfully completely shut down a government agency. There are also cases kicking around involving wrongful terminations of federal government employees. Federal government employees have rights. And when you are summarily told that, you know what, we're getting rid of you for performance-based reasons, and that is untrue, there are legal challenges that employees can and have brought. So, yeah, there are some parameters, there is some precedent, but what we know is that Donald Trump is always willing to sort of step a toe or an entire foot or maybe throw his entire body over the lawful and constitutional line, hoping that maybe the Supreme Court will, in any event, just give him their blessing because that's what they forever seem to be willing to do.
And finally, when can we expect the next steps of this case to play itself out?
Well, it's actively in the trial court now. I think it may actually be before the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals for some legal ruling. So this is the kind of thing where we're going to have to take it day by day, see how quickly the lower courts move and issue opinions. And, it's something that I suspect we're going to be hearing about in the days and the weeks to come. Okay, well, we will, of course, stay on top of this case and any other legal news. For those who are watching, if you'd like to follow along, please make sure to subscribe. The links to both of our channels are right here on this screen. It's the best way to support our work, and it is completely free. So, I'll put the link right here on this screen. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen. And I'm Glenn Kirshner.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown.